Well, good afternoon. Welcome to City Council meeting. Today is Monday, December 1, 2025. It's approximately 1 p.m. I'm Mayor Eric Enriquez. Before we start, I want to mention that we have the ASL, American Sign Language interpreters up front and available to us at all times. We will start with a moment of silence. If you all please join me, stand up as we recognize our brave men and women of the United States Armed Forces as they protect our interests around the globe, and our local Las Cruces Police and Fire Department as they protect our city 24/7, 365. And if Councilor Graham, you can lead us in the pledge. So presentations, certificates, proclamations, we have none. Next is Job of the Week, Sarah Rainey.
Thank you, Mayor. There we go. My name is Sarah Rainey. I'm the one-stop coordinator for the Southwest region of America's Job Center, New Mexico. For Jobs of the Week for the last month of this year, we have Building Inspector for the City of Las Cruces for $22.85. Job posting closes on the 15th, so it closes very soon. We also have a telecommunicator for the city. That one starts at $23.39. That one is a continuous posting at this time. We have a payroll clerk and administrative assistant for Southwest Sport and Spine. That starts at $16 an hour and closes on the 14th. We also have a warehouse person, a loader for evening and seasonal work for Frito-Lay, starting at $20.25 an hour and closing on the 13th. We have an HHS division manager for court compliance and criminal justice division for Doñana County, starting at $70,000. That posting closes on the 5th. That's this Friday, so that one closes extremely soon. We also have an assessor at the assessor's office, with the county, starting at $21 an hour, and that one closes on the 12th, so next week. Right now, we don't have many events going on. We do have the visitors in our office we have H&R Block, and we have Job Corps that come to our office monthly. So if you're looking for those opportunities, please come by our office. And if there's anything else that anyone is needing, please reach out to us on employeenm.com or any of our social medias. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next is Pets of the Week, Carol.
Good afternoon. I'm Carol Nelson, Digital Content Specialist with the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley. Our dog of the week is Joey, 69537. I'm a friendly and fairly well-mannered guy, ready to bring a little sunshine into your life. Often praised for my sweet demeanor. I love attention and affection. I'm all in for some quality time with you. I love to explore new sights and smells, turning our walks into little adventures filled with sniffing escapades. I'm the type of dog who can truly enjoy a bit of everything. You'll find me relishing playtime with a squeaky ball, eagerly anticipating those delightful bum scratches, and of course, savory treats. Let's create some fun memories together. And our cat of the week is Dina, 100564. I'm a friendly gal who adores people of all ages, men, women, and kids. I get along great with other animals too. I love lounging in my kennel, soaking up sunlight, and keeping an eye on everything happening around me. I've learned that mornings are my favorite time. I'm ready to greet you with head nudges and soft meows, just asking for a little attention and affection. My previous owner says that I'm litter box trained and housebroken. I promise I'm good company and will bring joy and warmth to your home. If you think you'd like to meet me, please come meet me. And our long-term residents, we wanted to highlight, we are happy to share that after 317 days at the shelter, Cosette, our longest resident, was adopted. So we're super happy for her. But we have other long-term residents needing adoption. Dexter has been with us 314 days. Finn, 304 days. Hulu, 302 days. All really good options as well for adoption. And for our upcoming events, this weekend we will be at Petco from 10 to 1, so come on by. And then we also wanted to put it on everyone's radar a little bit earlier that Saturday, December 13th, we are going to be doing a photo day with Santa Paws. So you can bring dogs only, no cats, please. So you can bring your dogs by. And we just ask that you bring a donation for Community of Hope, and you will get a picture with Santa and your pet. So that'll be from 1 to 3 at the shelter. And as always, for more information, you can follow us on social media or visit our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Next on the agenda, conflict of interest. Does any member of the city council, city manager, or any member of the city staff have any known conflict of interest with any item on the agenda?
None.
None.
Next is public participation. Katrina will be available to usher you to the microphone. You're allowed 3 minutes, no pending litigation or items on the non-consent.
Mayor, council, those here today, those watching online, I'm Lynn Moorer. There's no safe level of lead in drinking water. That's why the lead and galvanized pipes in Las Cruces need to be replaced in compliance with the lead and copper rule. It's a critical responsibility for Las Cruces utilities to protect public health and get the job done right. Unfortunately, more instances of falsification or rank incompetence keep coming to light. At the November 13 Utilities Board meeting, an assistant utilities director with a master's degree in accountancy presented pipe inspection numbers that don't add up. Handout 1 shows that differences between the numbers reported and the actual numbers attempt to make the department look better by claiming more service lines have been inspected than a close examination of the numbers appears to reveal. The upshot is that we don't know how many inspections the city has actually carried out. How can we believe Las Cruces utilities on any of the big issues when they fail to get the numbers right? This is a troubling pattern. On October 6th, I brought to your attention serious inconsistencies in the department's numbers regarding funding requests and a report to the state. Department staffers have demonstrated repeatedly that they don't appear to think the lead and copper rule applies to them. It also appears they don't think the rules of mathematics apply to them either. At a minimum, they need to step up their game. Part of the problem may be muddled presentations by muddled staffers. EPA requires 2 evidence-based inspection techniques for each pipe, and that pipe inspection methods be verified as accurate. The EPA guidance document requiring this was provided in handout 1 at the August 4th meeting. This goes to the very heart of the job, discovering the extent to which Las Cruces has lead pipes so they can be replaced. The Utilities Department recently made a dangerous and pathetic statement. According to handout 2, the department doesn't have any inspection techniques other than just looking in the meter box. That's That's incredible because EPA guidance outlines a number of effective inspection techniques, as at least one university also has. Various cities in the Southwest use an array of inspection techniques additional to looking in the meter box. This helps them comply with the rule. If El Paso, Dallas, Lubbock, Houston, Amarillo, Oklahoma City, and Tucson can use them, surely Las Cruces can use them too. It's not rocket science. We citizens have been doing our civic duty by bringing to your attention problems over the past year. None of you can honestly claim now that you don't know about them. We citizens think that at long last, it's time for you to pull your heads out of the sand and instruct the city manager to direct the utilities department to remedy these numerous deficiencies. Direct him to hire third-party engineering expertise so the job gets done right. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Mayor, City Council, I'm Liz Rodriguez Johnson. I'm going to explain in detail a significant problem with Las Cruces Utilities' characterizations of piping that it's using to avoid acknowledging that a lot of piping in the city could be lead. Rather than undertaking a good faith effort to comply with the lead and copper rule, the city's inventory reveals several tricks being used to hide the probability of lead pipes. Today, I'll discuss the city's misuse of installation date after lead ban as the basis of material classification. A large problem is evident in handout A, which contains inventory records captured before installation dates were disappeared from the inventory. This shows 5 properties with installation dates before 1986. 1965, 1972, 74, and 84. Each falsely says the piping is non-lead on installation date after the lead ban. Las Cruces Utilities says this piping is non-lead because it was installed after the lead ban in 1986, when clearly it wasn't. Each of these properties could well have lead pipes because they are all installed before the lead ban. Another way the city is misusing the basis of installation date after lead ban is using it as a justification for saying a property's pipes are unknown. Handout B shows 5 properties whose piping the city says is unknown because of installation after the lead ban. This makes no sense. If in fact the installation date is after 1986, why would that cause the piping material to be unknown? The city is using another similar ploy. Handout C shows 5 properties whose piping the city is calling unknown, unlikely lead. Again, using the basis installation date after lead ban. This is even more dubious because it provides no justification for why it is unlikely lead. Why do they think that? Thus, installation date after lead ban is used by the city to justify characterizing pipes as non-lead or unknown unlikely lead. It's being used as a reason for calling pipes any one of 3 different types. None is authoritative or believable. This is especially the case when we know that many of Las Cruces Utilities' characterizations of non-lead based on installation after the lead ban are false, like those in handout A. Furthermore, the classifications non-lead and unknown are mutually exclusive. They can't both be justified using the same basis. The upshot is the city's continued avoidance of acknowledging that piping is or could be lead. This violates the rule. Those who drink Las Cruces water deserve much better than this.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And come on up.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Lucas Herndon. I am resident of District 2. Last time I came prepared with something I wrote because I wanted to be sure and try to say everything I could in my 3 minutes. What resulted from that, after I came and spoke about my concern with the police chief making a mass appeal to sort of get around the city's ordinance, or not ordinance, but policy of not working with the feds, and him being able to utilize his platform to then have the federal government come in and arrest somebody that he wanted off the streets. That has sort of sparked a conversation in our in the community via news sources and stories and opinion pieces written. And my speech has been put forward by certain people attending this on their social media platforms. So I guess I just want to sort of take responsibility for starting that conversation and say that I stand by it. I still think that it's bad. I still think that an unelected person who is an employee of the city, who reports to you all, and through certain state statutes and federal statutes shouldn't have political power, went around those things by using his social media platform to make those appeals and have the federal government come in under those auspices. I don't think that that's in the spirit of what we are asking our chief of police to do, which is to not work with the federal government. And as I said in that time, and just for the record, I don't think, as has been sort of levied at me, that nothing should be done about certain people, like in this case, Mr. Garcia, who had an extensive arrest record and has been sort of slipping through the cracks over and over and over again of our quote-unquote justice system. But the answer is not to just arrest him federally and sort of take it off of our hands. The answer is to fix the cracks. So as I think that, we will hopefully be doing later in this session when it comes to talking about our legislative priorities, I hope that the city does back actual comprehensive changes to some of those systems, and does continue to consider what it is that we are asking of our employees of the city. Thank you.
Hello, council members. My name is Zach, District 2, and I'm here to address several interconnected issues that raise serious concerns about public trust, civil liberties, and the exercise of police authority in our city. First, I want to highlight the recent decision by Police Chief Jeremy Story to use what amounts to a Hobbs Act loophole to escalate a local arrest into a federal case. The Hobbs Act was enacted in 1946 to target interstate robbery and extortion, not local disputes. And its expanded use has been criticized across the political spectrum. A Brennan Center analysis and subsequent GAO review found that the federal prosecution of traditionally local crimes increased more than 32% between 2001 and 2020, driven in part by overbroad interpretations of statutes like the Hobbs Act. This practice consistently undermines local oversight, and research published through the National Institute of Justice shows that when local authorities bypass state systems, public trust declines sharply, particularly among communities already skeptical of law enforcement. This becomes even more troubling in the context of a broader pattern. Multiple incidents over the past few years have raised questions about Chief Story's willingness to jump to immediate and radical conclusions, such as when he put armed snipers on the roof for a peaceful protest. While an apology was issued for that, it still is indicative of a pattern. And when we look at these issues together, the use of force against peaceful demonstrators, followed by a decision to federalize a local situation through a Hobbs Act workaround, we see not isolated decisions, but a pattern of preferred aggressive escalation over democratic local and state level solutions. If there are gaps in local or state law, the appropriate path is collaboration with the legislature and transparent public debate, not seeking harsher outcomes through federal channels that remove cases from community oversight. The second major issue I would like to raise is the expansion of Flock license plate reader cameras. The data here is consistent. Flock shares information with over 2,000 law enforcement agencies, and investigations by the ACLU and EFF around ICE found that ICE has accessed ALPR data from at least 30 jurisdictions, sometimes without the knowledge of the local departments providing the data. Even if our city does not intend to share data with federal immigration enforcement, once it enters regional or statewide databases, access becomes very difficult to control. Claims that flock cameras reduce crime are mixed at best. Independent studies, including those from the Polis Center, show no statistically significant reduction in violent crime associated with ALPR use. And property crime solving improvements average only 2 to 7%, often fading after the first year. Meanwhile, communities of color are scanned disproportionately. Thank you.
Hello, Liz Bennett, licensed social worker, speaking in a personal capacity. I had originally planned to speak to the police killing of Philip Mullen on October 9th. I wanted to remind our community that the logic and standard operating procedures of police, including the Las Cruces Police Department, is the reason that individuals experiencing untreated mental illness are 16 times more likely to be murdered by police. I wanted to ask our community if we are okay with how that incident played out. I wanted to ask if we all agree that the actions of Philip Mullen warranted the death penalty. I wanted to ask if for all of the effort we have invested in successful crisis intervention strategies like Project Light, can we also acknowledge there is still significant work to do to decrease the likelihood that police will respond to mental health crises with shouting and gunshots? I wanted to remind us all that violence, aggression, homicidal, and suicidal ideation are all symptoms of untreated mental illness, and that any one of us might suffer from such a crisis in our lifetimes. I wanted to remind us that with the fallout of federal support for prevention programs, many more will suffer from similar situations in the near future. That is what I wanted to talk about, and then I read Heath Hossman's article on Chief Story's recent cooperation with federal agents to detain another man deemed mentally incompetent. I then watched the chilling video update with Story flanked by Trump administration officials, including Pam Bondi appointee Ryan Ellison, and learned that Neil Garcia, who LCPD had previously advocated needed treatment and to whom no treatment was given, is now facing up to 20 years in federal prison for interference in commerce. In the video, Ellison claimed that the U.S. Attorney's Office is open for business and is eager to detain others. I understand that our local judges are also implicated in failing to pursue legal treatment options. But for Chief Story to respond by throwing this man away potentially for the rest of his life and creating a commercial inviting other law enforcement to do the same is a clear abuse of power and demonstration of values and alliances. At a time when those same federal officials are enacting the unlawful abduction, detention, and abuse of Black and brown, unhoused, and mentally ill people, his actions are deeply disturbing and unacceptable. In accordance with the stated values of the City of Las Cruces, I would like to recommend that the LCPD explore hiring a social worker or two. As a community, we are all accountable for how we respond to our toughest challenges. And in these two instances, the system collectively denied these men the real possibility of care. It is all of our failing, and it is up to all of us to decide how we move forward. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, Juan Garcia. During the 17 November meet, one of our friends on the left had choice comments for the engagement of the feds locally. Police overreach, occupation, militarization of streets, restore local control, et cetera, et cetera. And my favorite, criminalization of poverty. Let's call it what it is. Criminalizing poverty is a smokescreen. The real political crime are politicians who keep people hooked on government handouts, starving them of real opportunities and calling it compassion, while taxpayers foot the bill. Look in New Mexico, where nearly half the state is on food stamps. And what about the soft on crime crowd? They cower from passing laws with real teeth, letting criminals roam free and terrorize anyone trying to play by the rules, while parroting, crime isn't so bad. Tell that to the victims like Patricia from the shop on Main, who numerous times pled for your help, but ignored until driven out of town by the relentless repeated attacks on her store and the lack of empathy from New Mexico, quote, lawmakers. Maybe we need someone to be set on fire by a repeat offender like in Chicago. Look at the latest local crime by, quote, kids, where they plowed through a gun store, inflicting thousands of dollars worth of damage. But when the police chief highlights the problem and the lack of action by judges and politicos on repeat offenders, our friends go into the attack mode. How dare the feds be allowed to come into our community and put that criminal behind bars? Political drama and accusations of overreach, with a federal trial of a repeat offender with 108 arrests and 15 of those felonies, but not a peep when a Hispanic was tried in federal court, as he should have, for posting a threatening voicemail against a city councilor. Perhaps the councilor is more important than the victims of the repeat offender. Political hypocrisy at its worst. And I continue. The decision to let healthcare providers walk away, leaving the most valuable without even basic care is a choice politicos have made. Politicians pick favorites and turn their backs on the people who need them most, and then point fingers anywhere but themselves. And in closing, people, especially on the left, love to drag Christians through the mud. Homophobes, nationalists, all those other good things. But no one seems to be eager to mention Islam, the fastest growing religion in the country. For all the noise about inclusivity, Islam's record on that front doesn't exactly scream open arms. Yet no one is concerned. Thank you.
Alrighty, good morning, good afternoon, sorry, council. My comment here is delayed, but I couldn't not show up for our community member, Philip Mullen, who was killed by police on November.
Ma'am, could we get your name?
Oh, Lindley Hornsby, speaking on my own accord. As I was saying, I couldn't not show up for a community member that was killed by police. His name was Philip Mullen. This happened last month, and it's my understanding this was not the first time that we've had a community member killed by police, not the second time either. It's happened multiple times over the years in our community, and I just want to say that accepting this as business as usual is unacceptable. Police fear their own safety in some of these situations because police have been harmed by community members in the past, and community members are defensive around police because our police force kills community members. And seeing the body cam footage which was released, It strikes me as someone that has de-escalation and crisis intervention training that weapons don't de-escalate a person, in which the person in crisis is carrying a weapon. It escalates the situation, and I would imagine that you all witnessed the same thing when you watched the footage. So I just want to call us to collaborate more with crisis professionals, understanding that we want everyone in the community to be safe, and our police force doesn't get a privilege of being safer than folks in our community, especially folks that have unaddressed mental health needs. And I really want this conversation around collaborating with crisis professionals, Project Light, the countywide crisis intervention unit that we have now. I want to continue this discussion as our police chief, attempting social media stardom, is needlessly inciting federal intervention in our community, boasting his support of the trumped-up charges on a community member previously deemed incompetent to stand trial. It feels like things are really getting out of hand and not in alignment with the Welcoming City resolution, in which we're protecting vulnerable community members from federal enforcement that's not necessary, that's violent, that's racist, that's targeting certain communities. We have that going on, right? And then we also have our police chief inviting the feds into our community, and it's my understanding that the police chief answers to the city manager. So I just wanted to call that in. Thank you.
My name is Janet Madison. I own the Estate Sale Discovery Store on Picacho Street. I have been there for 7 years, and I would just like to say that I'm 88 years old, and I have worked there alone a great deal of the time. I have never felt myself to be at risk. If we ever needed the police, which I believe was only once in 8 years, they have responded immediately. I do see a definite need for mental health help for the people there, but I have not felt that we were in a very dangerous position, and that is one of the high crime areas of the city. But we have not had a serious problem, and I just want you to know that. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Gabriela Castillo, and I am an NMSU social work student, and I'm here to urge the city to take action to bridge the gap between substance use, stable housing, and resource services in the city of Las Cruces. As an intern at a behavioral health clinic, I've worked closely with a substance use group, and I've learned how social, economic, and environmental factors impact recovery. Many of the people I've met want to rebuild their lives but face barriers like unstable housing or unemployment that increase the risk of relapse. This issue is personal to me because I believe that every person deserves an equal chance at stability and recovery. New Mexico's rate of substance use disorder is higher than the national average, 23.6% of residents compared to 17.8% nationwide. Many individuals with substance use disorder go untreated and struggle with homelessness. Mesilla Valley Community of Hope reported in 2022, 231 people were chronically homeless. That number has since risen to 810. Research shows that more than 1/3 of people experiencing homelessness also struggle with substance use disorder, meaning this issue is interconnected. Unemployment is another barrier for people in recovery, especially those who have been incarcerated in the past. A statewide survey by Ideal Option found that among 900 New Mexicans entering treatment, about 42% were unemployed. Here in Las Cruces, the unemployment rate is about 4.8%, which is approximately 4,900 residents that are unemployed. Without steady work, it's much harder to maintain stability and avoid relapse, showing how addiction and economic insecurity are also connected. I'm here today to ask the committee to consider allocating opioid settlement fund toward expanding supportive housing in Las Cruces. Supportive housing creates safety and security for individuals affected by substance use and is the foundation for long-term recovery. I also urge the creation of a city-led coalition task force that coordinates housing, behavioral health, and workforce services, By bringing these resources together, the city can close service gaps, support long-term recovery, and is an easily accessible hub for individuals who often struggle to navigate the system on their own. This proposal directly supports your program goal to strengthen the continuum of care for individuals transitioning between treatment and recovery. Including these proposals in upcoming RFP reviews would help rebuild the system of care and ensure that residents receive the support that they need to recover. With services, we can reduce relapse, increase stability, and help residents in recovery reintegrate into our community successfully. Thank you for your time and consideration to this important investment in Las Cruces' future. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Leslie Esparza. I'm a resident of Las Cruces and a bachelor student of social work at NMSU, and also interned with Attendance for Success under the Las Cruces Public Schools. Through my practicum, I met students every day who struggle to attend school or access basic resources simply because of transportation barriers. Centennial High School's current lack of a nearby city bus stop makes this challenge even harder, especially for those who already face barriers outside of school. This issue does not only affect traditional Centennial High School students at the campus, it also houses the Student Success Academy students, also known as SSA, in the 18 to 21 Bridge program, which is a program that supports young adults with developmental disabilities as they build life and job skills. Both programs rely heavily on public transportation. For many of them, the city bus is not just helpful, but is their only way to get to school, work, or access essential services independently. Adding a bus stop in front of Centennial High School would ensure all students, regardless of background or ability, have a fair shot at success. It would help reduce absenteeism, improve safety by eliminating students walking along busy and dangerous roads, and support students and families who depend on public transit to stay connected to our community. Today, I respectfully urge you to prioritize installing a city bus stop on Sonoma Ranch Boulevard right in front of Centennial High School. This small change can unlock big opportunities, advance equity, inclusion, and accessibility for students across Las Cruces. Thank you for your time and consideration for this matter.
Good afternoon, George Pearson. Over the weekend, there was some unfortunate news. 2 pedestrian fatalities in the community, one by a vehicle on the NMSU campus apparently, and one by a train over by Main Street. We need to keep track of things like this and see if Vision Zero discussion can help address that. The train fatalities, I know of 2 others that have happened over the past years. Those essentially disappear because they didn't happen on roadways. They don't get added to statistics anyplace. So lives are still valuable, and we do need to move towards Vision Zero. I hope that we have a Safe Streets for All grant that's working its way through. So that should be started shortly, and this should be part of that discussion also. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. I'm Jennifer Cry, and I'm here to say thank you. We're at the end of 2025. I appreciate the support that has been given by the council to the police department. Far from defunding them, they've given generously in terms of budget and special things like the real-time center. Thank you for the Animal Service Center, which I visited for the first time and took home a pet last week. Thank you for the welcoming city resolution. And most of all, Thank you for the pickleball courts, which I know is in 2024, but as a tennis player, I sleep much better now. And I thank you for your attention and care for the city. It is reflected in the community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to talk to the issue of separation of powers. Maybe you've had the opportunity to watch The Revolution.
Your name, please.
Oh, Jim Hurst. I'm sorry. My name's Jim Hurst, and I want to talk about separation of powers and the U.S. Constitution. I've had the privilege of watching Ken Burns in The Revolution over the last week or so. I hope you get that privilege. Local law enforcement belongs in the hands of local elected officials. We elect a sheriff for the county. We elect a county council. They oversee the police department. That guarantees citizens a voice in our law enforcement. Our police chief has no authority to delegate law enforcement, even for the most difficult individuals, to the feds. If anyone can give up a citizen of this town to the feds, it ought to be this council. Only elected officials should be able to do that. If we want to start electing our police chief, that's one thing, but he is not elected. Only elected officials should be able to breach that boundary. He should not have the right to hand over a citizen of this community. If the feds have legal cause against him, let them come get them. But he has no right to hand them over. It's wrong. It's called posse comitatus. I have the right to know everybody in this community with a badge answers to this community. The feds can only come in at the direction of the feds, not at the direction of a local constable. He's nothing but another policeman to the rest of us citizens. Thank you very much.
Okay, next is the closed meeting statement for today. The Las Cruces City Council met in closed meeting on December 1st, 2025 at 10:35 a.m. The following were in attendance: Councilor McClure, Councilor Coran, Councilor Graham, City Manager Ikani Tamopayao, City Attorney Brad Douglas, Interim Assistant City Manager David Cedillo, Parks Director Steve Bingham, Outside Counsel Alan Dahl, Mayor Pro Tem Bencomo, Mayor Enriquez, City Clerk Christine Rivera. Also were Chris Favor, Elizabeth Teeters, and Diane Bustillos. The Las Cruces City Council met to discuss pending or threatened litigation as it pertains to the Walnut Skate Park, which is closed pursuant to Section 1015-1H7. We also discussed the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property or water rights to the public body, which is closed pursuant to Section 1015-1H8. We also met to discuss pending or threatened litigation as it pertained to subrogation claim number 202-4AL0401, issued by State Farm Mutual Automobile Insurance Company, which is closed pursuant to Section 1015-1H7. The meeting adjourned at 12:06 p.m. Next is the acceptance of agenda.
So moved, Graham.
Second, Corn.
This is on the motion to accept the agenda as presented. Counselor McClure?
Yes.
Counselor Matisse?
Yes.
Counselor Graham?
Yes.
Counselor Coran?
Yes.
Counselor Flores?
Yes.
Counselor Bencomo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Next is item 8.1, resolution number 26-072.
Move to approve.
Second by Flores.
Yeah, we want to go ahead and run item 8.1 and 8.2 concurrently, so we'll need a motion and a second to vote and discuss.
So moved by Flores.
Second.
This is on the motion to suspend the rules to listen to items 8.1 and 8.2 concurrently. Counselor McClure?
Yes.
Counselor Matisse?
Yes.
Counselor Graham?
Yes.
Counselor Coran?
Yes.
Counselor Flores?
Yes.
Counselor Bencomo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay, go ahead, Blair.
Awesome. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Manager, and City Council members. For the record, my name is Blair Flores, and I'm with the Economic Development Department. Rhonda Bell with Stantec will be co-presenting with me today. We are here to revisit the Metropolitan Redevelopment Plan for the West Picacho and Motel Boulevard corridor, which was last presented at the November 10th City Council work session. We'd like to begin with a brief recap of the key components of the plan. The original boundaries of the MRA were established in March of 2023 in the MRA designation report. However, Stantec recommends extending the boundary west of Motel Boulevard to the Rio Grande River, which would allow additional motel properties to be included within the MRA. This expansion requires a separate resolution and its own vote. I'd also like to note that the vote on the boundary extension may impact the vote on the MRA plan, as the extension is one of the plan's key recommendations. With that, I will now turn it over to Rhonda Bell.
Mayor, Council, good afternoon. Rhonda Bell, I'm an urban planner, and I've been managing this MRA plan. So to return to the purpose of the MRA, as with other MRAs, we acknowledge that public investment often precedes private investment. So the purpose of this project is to identify those public investments in order to spur the private investment, and eventually, when both of those come together, to restore and enhance that sense of place and pride of community. The plan looks to do those things in a three-pronged approach, which is to identify the critical path, which are the projects that need to be done, the order that they need to be done in, what's linked, what's not linked. Identify the champions that will lead each of the strategies in the plan. That's typically a city department, and I say lead the plan. No single department is solely responsible for any of those things. And then, of course, to identify the funding sources that can be used for each of the strategies recommended in the plan. We did this, this plan took about 14 months, and we did have public engagement throughout. We started about August or September of last year, 2024, and we had listening sessions with individuals, with small groups, a variety of different people and organizations. Those went from October the whole way through July of this year. We also had 2 community surveys. One of those was for the community at large, and one of them was for business owners within the study area. And the community survey had over 700 responses. For an area this size, that's an actually really good response. The business was a much smaller response, but we had about 12, and those were useful answers, although, as I said, smaller. We had 2 community design workshops. The first one was in September, and that was more of an interactive push up your sleeves and get down to work kind of affair. The second one was run more as a public open house input and commenting on boards and images that we had for folks, and that was in July of this year. And then finally, once we had a draft plan, that plan was available for public comment digitally and in paper format if requested for a little over 30 days, from about mid-September to mid-October. And we closed that comment just before we came and talked to you on November 10th at your working session. The recommendations in the plan are divided into 6 categories, 6 buckets, if you will, that you see on the screen in front of you. And each of those strategies has 4 or 5 specific recommendations in it, and each of the recommendations has actions that contribute to it to realize that recommendation. Do I need to read those to read them into the public record? No, thank you. The plan also included 3 catalytic projects, the first of which is the Tashiro Mixed-Use Hub. This is the single largest undeveloped part of the study area. It's about 42 acres. It is held by a single private owner. The second catalytic project is Comunas Park, and that abuts Valley Drive, just a little bit north of Picacho Boulevard, and that is a current city park. And the objective of making that a catalytic project was to look at how it could be updated to more address community trends and interests in how they want to use that park. The last catalytic project then was the Blues Apartments. They are apartments now. It's a former motel. It's right on the corner of West Picacho and 17th. And the intention of this catalytic project was to create a template of how many of the former motels or current motels along West Picacho Boulevard can be redeveloped and transitioned into various types of housing. And then the last part of the plan that focuses on the implementation deals with incentives and funding. So we looked for potential regional, state, and even federal funding sources that could go towards each of the buckets of recommendations we had. We looked at 4 different criteria to see if a potential funding source was a good match for the strategies in the plan. The first question was whether the project or the strategy that was recommended matched the funding option, if they were looking to do the same thing, the same kind of project. The second requirement was readiness. Some funding options look to fund initial planning or engineering, and other options look to fund implementation, or some fund that whole gamut of implementation. The third question that we ask relative to funding appropriateness is whether the project and the funding were aligned in terms of timeline. So when the city wants to do that project compared to when the funding application is due, if it has a specific date, the calendar for decision, and when it would be received. And then the last question that we ask about funding is whether or not the amount justifies the effort the city would have to put in both to apply for that funding and to manage it if it's achieved. So for instance, a funding option that has a $2,000 maximum grant might be great if you're looking to fill in a certain gap in the sidewalk. If you're looking to completely redesign the geometry and reconstruct an intersection, that $2,000 won't go very far. That's just an example. Then, as far as the incentives and implementation, we identified 47 different funding sources, and they are specifically matched to those 6 categories of recommendations I showed you before. And we gave you, in the plan, a matrix that identifies the funding agency or source, the acceptable uses, the maximum amount, the schedule, the contact, and the website, and that is live. It can be clicked in the plan. Then the last part I think we want to talk about today is we did make a small number of revisions to the plan based on both your comment from the council and from public comment from the November 10th meeting when we came here. So the first of those changes is the gateways. We did recommend both primary and secondary gateways in the plan. The western gateway was originally recommended to be at Roadrunner Lane. A member of the public indicated that they felt that the river and La Llorona Park was really where they felt that they had arrived into the city and into the district. And so we made that change. The second is safety relative to development of that vacant, undeveloped property that we called the Tashiro Multi-Use Hub. A member of the public had concerns that any development on that property could have a negative impact on roadway safety, particularly given the proximity of the Field of Dreams and the school as well. It is still recommended that property be redeveloped or developed, but we did add text in the plan that notes that any development on that property, whether it's phased and multiple projects or as a single master planned area, will require and need a traffic impact analysis as part of the normal city process. And then the last item that was discussed at that November 10th council meeting was the cross-section of West Picacho. And there is a need to make it more pedestrian friendly and align more with city roadway standards, even though it is both a federal and an NMDOT roadway. We added text to the plan that acknowledged the need for that future study, but also acknowledged that given the complicated ownership and maintenance agreement situation, that there is difficulty in determining when that street roadway section would take place or who would be responsible. And most importantly, those activities would require essentially a round-robin kind of coordination between all of those stakeholder agencies. We also did a little bit more background research on Picacho, and I'm going to turn it back over to Blair to talk about that.
Thank you, Rhonda. In addition to the revisions made since the November work session, we'd like to revisit the concerns surrounding the federal Picacho roadway, provide clarity, and reiterate how the city can work with NMDOT to improve safety. Hazardous materials and oversized trucks are already bypassing Picacho by using the I-10, I-25 interchange. While reclassifying Picacho may seem like a viable option, doing so would also restrict local delivery trucks, making it impractical. It is our understanding in our meetings with NMDOT that the installation of the median was completed in response to public request at that time. Moving forward, the most effective approach is continued collaboration with NMDOT to implement city-funded safety improvements, such as additional pedestrian crossings, improved lighting, upgraded sidewalks, and safer intersections. NMDOT is generally supportive of these practical enhancements. In the short term, progress will largely involve updating maintenance agreements so that the city can assume responsibility for these improvements without needing to address the more complex issue of roadway ownership. Next, we'd like to outline the upcoming steps for internal implementation. The adopted plan will be reviewed again with the internal MRA committee. We will collect and evaluate existing and CIP projects relevant to the MRA and begin prioritizing the projects identified in the plan. We will also begin preparing the resolution for the GRT baseline and county property tax. Lastly, projects will be entered into Invisio to support project management and public reporting. This concludes our presentation. City Council, here are your voting options. You will be voting on 2 items today. First, the boundary extension, and second, the adoption of the MRA plan. With that, we stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Blair. Any questions, Councilor Grant?
Thanks, Mayor. Not a question so much as a clarification, specifically regarding the Toshiro Hub catalytic project. If I got that whole thing out right. I've received some communication from community members regarding the zoning of that area, and unless I'm mistaken, I'm saying what I think is true, and tell me if I'm correct or incorrect. That area is already zoned. The MRA is a completely different subject topic from zoning, and seeking changing of that zoning would not be something we would do here today, regardless. Is that correct?
Councilor Graham and City Council, I'm going to go ahead and pass that over to Community Development
Chris
Director.
Favor, perhaps?
Yes, the infamous Chris Favor.
Mayor, Council, Chris Favor for the record. That is correct. Yes, it is already zoned. The MRA plan does not propose any changes to the existing zoning on that site.
Okay, and nor is something that we would tackle. That's not something we would tackle today anyway. That would be a completely different process.
Mayor, Council, that is correct.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Blair. And thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Flores.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Ms. Flores, Tocaya. On page 9, there were some improvements or some activity that on Picacho, which is also a federal byway. but the funds for safety would be provided by the city. Why wouldn't the feds be contributing if it's a federal road as well?
Do you mean why would the feds not be contributing to improvements?
Well, if you go to page 9 and then, is it the last one? Yeah. Best path forward, the last, dot there, whatever. Work with New Mexico DOT to add city-funded safety upgrades. Why would it only be city-funded when it's also a federal highway?
You want to answer that?
Do you know? And if you don't know, you can look into it.
I think it's because the enhancements, the upgrades that we want are entirely focused on things that are not really within the purview of the federal government. They're
That
more
are not what? I'm sorry.
within the purview of the federal government. They are related.
Safety isn't within their purview?
That's fair. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have said that they would be city-funded because it is looking to bring the roadway up to city roadway standards as opposed to the standards that are set by the federal government or by NMDOT for the roadways that they control.
So let me see if I understand this. Since it is in the city, it would make sense to, as you say, use our standards, but why would it preclude the feds or the state, especially the federal government, from contributing? I mean, why should the design be the determining factor? Can you look into it?
We can look into it, yes.
Yeah, because, we need money. So, I mean, whoever, and I think that they would have to also have a say-so insofar as liability is,
The other thing that we can also look into is there are various sources that have already been identified in the implementation part for those types of improvements that relative to pedestrian and cyclist, both experience and safety.
Yeah.
But we can absolutely look into
I would appreciate that because, if it is federal and there's a possibility or maybe a probability of getting funds from the feds, we'll be in better shape and can do, stretch our dollar. Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much.
Councilor Flores, just to add to that, in our meetings with NMDOT, they currently do not have any plans for some of the amenities and upgrades that we feel would make the roadway safer. And so, again, going back to not taking over ownership, but the city supporting some of these safety upgrades, that was the recommendation, that somehow the city come up with the funding to make those safety improvements.
So this wasn't run by the feds or the other?
The roadway is a federal highway.
So wouldn't they have a say-so?
As of right now, they don't have plans for that, and so we feel that the most progressive way is the city kind of back those upgrades through the MRA.
Well, I don't know. I can't, tell you what to do. But I think it'd be a good idea, Mr. Ikani Tamopeo, to have your people look into it.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no harm in that. All they can say is no, and we're already at no funds from them, so.
Correct.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Flores.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Thanks so much again for all of the work to get us here. On this page, actually, where it says the median was added at local request, does that mean local request by the city or local request by people who live and have businesses in the district?
Our understanding was that it was the public's request at that time.
So I will tell you that I have heard this before from staff and from NMDOT. I will tell you that is not what I hear from the public today. And when this happened, that was a request, but I will continue to speak about, frankly, the annoyance of this median, not only because I find it annoying, but because I consistently hear from especially businesses in that area how much that medium has impacted the flow of their business and access to their businesses. So I will just say that I have heard this before. I I don't know where that comes from, or DOT is saying, well, that's what they wanted before. It is not what people want now, and so I will continue to advocate for us to work with them on changing at least that piece, because I do think it'll make a big difference for a lot of those local businesses. And then I did want to add, just because I have also been getting some emails regarding the Tashiro corner. I think traffic is always a concern, something we should always be mindful of. Obviously, we just had a constituent here talk about, how dangerous New Mexico roads are in general for pedestrians. And I think this is an issue in many places across the city. And, I would love the data on Tashiro Valley, though I will say Tashiro is now one of the best complete streets in the city. And I think it is a model, actually, for what other, local streets should look like. So I do want to note that for the public who have concerns about the development that will go here, which, by the way, is privately run development, that is exciting. And I know that's always a fear. Like, if we develop it, the traffic, I get it. And I don't think we can let that hold us back from what could potentially be very exciting multi-use development. And so, I think also maybe the fear is the kind of development that will go there. I think what I always, want to fall back on is that while we can't tell the private industry what to put there, right? Someone was like, we should have an urgent care. It's like, well, that's not really up to the city. What we can do is incentivize and create opportunities for business to grow and to flourish, which that is the MRA. What happens after really is up to the private sector to sort of see and say what is needed there. And so I just want to be able to create as much opportunity as possible and work with as many developers as possible who are interested in that area. And I think that's exactly what the goal is with this MRA. And I do just want to say that I think it's important for us to not compare like the West Picacho MRA to the El Paseos. They just have very different needs and require very different interventions. And I do feel like we are going in the right pathway here, especially with the 3 catalytic projects. And so I just wanted to say that, because I understand that there's concerns and fear, as there always is with big changes, but I did just want to make those little tiny notes. I don't have any additional questions, just wanted to name that. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that, Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, that's not true. I did have one more thing, I'm so sorry. Regarding the traffic situation, I actually do think, though, that I'm hoping that with this MRA can additionally drive, especially with the development at the corner of Tashiro, is that I think it's deeply connected with McClure and Hoagland and the situation with traffic there. So I do want staff to, I think, as we really invest in this MRA, to understand that, like, the flow of traffic is interconnected within this neighborhood. And McClure is part of the MRA, right? That is the line.
Yes, that is correct.
And so I do just want to note that I think that should be potentially, we should, in our minds, make that the 4th unofficial catalytic project, because the traffic situation on McClure is, I think, hugely problematic and should be addressed. And Hoagland. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilor Matisse.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to give you some experience from observations on Missouri. The medians sometimes create decrease in certain businesses if you have busy businesses on each side of that median, and then you get a tremendous amount of increase in U-turns. So if traffic could just study Missouri, we have Napolitos, and we have an accounting firm, we have a rehabilitation firm on Missouri, I believe, in Treviso, and they have indicated to me that that median really just created a lot of U-turns and sometimes accidents. And I don't have any accident count, but I think medians probably need to be really studied before they're implemented, especially by the traffic department. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Matisse.
All right, thank you. Is there any members of the public that wanted to speak to this topic? Yeah, come on up. We'll start forming a line. You can come up. We'll give you a couple of minutes. 2 minutes.
George Pearson. I wanted to address the comments of Councilor Flores about possible funding. There are federal funds, the Highway Safety Improvement Program funds, that could be used. The state is mandated to spend 15% of those on pedestrian safety improvements because of our high pedestrian fatality rate in the state. We also had a presentation at the MPO's Bicycle and Pedestrian Facilities Advisory Committee from somebody from NMDOT talking about road safety audits. And those were specifically stated that they could also apply outside of NMDOT jurisdictions, but especially that corridor seems like it would be a good candidate. And so going through the MPO and contacting the appropriate state officials would be a good thing, I think. Thank you.
Hello, Liz Bennett. I live near the area that's being discussed, and I'm not sure if this is part of the plan, but it's definitely an observation I have made. Along McClure, particularly just east of the Henry Benavides Center and Playground, there's a pedestrian walkway that connects Valley to that recreation area, but then the pedestrian walkway ends east of the playground and community center, and there are often folks walking in the road. And it seems like an ideal place to continue that pedestrian pathway to improve access to the community center, make a complete trail, and also connect to the kind of reservoir pathway that exists. But there's that little chunk of space where it seems particularly hazardous and would make sense to connect it all there. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Lucas Herndon for the record. I just wanted to say that this is all very exciting, and as a longtime participant in the public discourse that happens here at City Council, it does my heart good to hear these plans being done, and specifically the Toshiro Hub, because I've been doing this long enough that I remember when we were here in front of the Zoning Commission and then the City Council when that was trying to be rezoned for Walmart. The Walmart neighborhood store, or whatever it is, wanted to build on that intersection. And we, as a community, we came together and we said, you know what, we have concerns about it. And there was a lot of concerns about the traffic and the zoning. And as a parent to an athlete who utilizes the facilities down there off of Toshiro and drives by that intersection a lot, I'm excited as a person who doesn't live in District 4 to have reasons to go down there and see what kind of things are developed. There are plenty of Walmarts in town, so as a person who doesn't live in that area, I wouldn't ever go out of my way to go shop at a Walmart on that corner. But for whatever other local development does come down there, hopefully, I'm excited to come and participate. And so I just want to sort of tie it all together. This is why we do what we do. This is why we have these meetings. This is why we have these public discourses. And sometimes it takes a lot of time, but it's worth it, because now, 13, 14 years later, here we are having a discussion about how to beautify and really bring this part of the community together. And I'm just about it. And I'm really excited. And I know that oftentimes I come up and I have complaints and I have negative things to say, and this is a positive one. So I just want to, hats off to everybody who's worked on this. Keep doing the good work. I know it takes a lot of it. So thank you for everybody who's been doing it.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Pro Tem, council members. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to each and every one of us. I am excited about the development as I am concerned.
Sir, could you state your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Jerry Silva. I thought you all told me. My mistake. I am excited about this development as well. I do understand private, you don't know who's going to go there. I do have some questions for Rhonda as far as as a public, I would like to know, find out what kind of test and analysis, how it comes out, because it really matters what goes there. Private, as gentleman mentioned, Walmart. What I understand from many people, that's Walmart wants it. They've been frothing at the mouth to be there.
Mr. Silva, would
I
you
would
speak
like to-
directly into the microphone just so we can hear you?
I will, I am sorry. But like I said, Walmart has been frothing at the mouth to be there. I would like to see a grocery store there as well. There's so many other grocery stores that can be there. I know, I just speaking to many other individuals that live in that area, the last thing they want to see is a Walmart there. So my main concerns is safety. And I know you mentioned that the road looks it's good, developed very well. I don't think it's developed well enough to handle a Walmart. I'll just be honest. There's other stores that can go there. And safety is the biggest thing. I will not go down that road. I mean, right now it's tough enough as it is. But parents that I've talked to from the grocery store that I work at, they are concerned about that. Not a lot of people are here, I understand, but I just wanted to thank you all again.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. I am interested, this is an exciting agenda that we have here, and I'm wondering, you mentioned that, I'm sorry, I keep doing that. Yolanda Robles, thank you. Communius Park is one of the areas that you're looking at addressing in this issue. Communius Park is just south of Parker Road. Parker Road, which is on the west side of Valley. That part of town, that road, Parker Road on the west, tends to be not in the field of vision of anybody in the city when it comes to taking care of the roads there. Parker Road on the east side is always well maintained and taken care of, but West Parker isn't, and I'm wondering if that will also be addressed in what you're doing here. Any idea? I mean, Communius Park is right there. It's just south to Parker Road. And then in addition to that, somebody mentioned it earlier, public transportation. We have public transportation in areas and we have bus stops, but in a city where we have basically 364 days of sunshine a year, our bus stops have terrible, terrible protection from the sun. You drive by, you see people sitting there, and I feel bad for them. I want to stop and give them an umbrella. But there's no protection. There's a bus stop, but there's absolutely no protection from the elements. So do you have any idea about the West Parker Road side? Anybody?
Does anyone have that?
Good morning, Mayor, Councilor Celine Morales, Economic Development. I don't have an answer. We can research that for you as far as that specific road, but there's a common trend going on right now, and I just want to reiterate that it's very clear that we're going to need within this MRA some sort of traffic analysis as well as pedestrian safety and other roadway improvements. The MRA is more of a high-level plan, but with that, with money generated within the MRA, we're able to take these issues to the MRA committee, which then will be able to fund things like a traffic plan, pedestrian safety, things like that, which is, I think, a priority and something that we'll recommend to the council as well as to the committee as far as getting funding to be able to do the research and to have the data behind those decisions that are made. We don't have that right now. This MRA plan is not that, and we are very well aware that we need it, and it'll be very much a priority for us, as well as getting other community input. As we have projects and things that we want to focus on, there are going to be a lot of opportunities for public engagement, public input. This isn't it for all of the MRA. As we come across those things, we'll have opportunities to meet with people, also maybe even work sessions, to be able to dive deeper and get more specific into these issues within the MRA. So we hear you, we hear everybody, and it's something that we'll definitely work on. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I would also say that the whole idea of the MRA is to lift up the areas that have been neglected over the years so that we can lift those up and help the community thrive in those areas. That's the whole thing. So having Communities Park on as one of the catalysts there is huge for the surrounding areas. So everything will be assessed and looked at and complement each other so that we continue to lift up the area. So I think it's a great opportunity to have Communities Park revisited and revitalized, and the surrounding area will also have that effect.
I hope so. And, you know, on that note, real quick, just as a comment overall, I find it very interesting and frustrating at the same time that we tend to go back, let neighborhoods and areas deteriorate. And then years later, we want to come back and we want to revitalize them. While we let these areas deteriorate, we're busy redeveloping new areas. And we ignore part of our history in our city. I think, this is just me and other people that I've spoken to, I think we as a community are we're horrible about holding on to our heritage. We're willing to knock things down and build new things. And then we look back and say, oh, let's come back, let's rebuild, let's revitalize this area. I just think that's a shame. I think our city has a lot to offer, and we don't see that as a community. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
May I make a comment?
Go ahead, Councilor
Ma'am.
Flores.
Senora, so I just want to let you know that we do have an historic, what's it called, Carol? The what? Historic Preservation Committee. Did you hear that? Okay, I wanted her to hear it. The Historic Preservation, and they work specifically on preserving the beauty of our city, the history, it's just absolutely wonderful. Go to our website, and it's something that you can participate in and bring up, parts of the city that, or certain buildings or structures. But everything moves slower than molasses on a cold day in January, like the Amador Hotel. Todavía no completa nada. I mean, it hasn't, nothing's come, it's not done. But anyway, we do have a very avid, very, very outspoken group of people who really want to preserve a lot of the beauty we have here.
And I appreciate you saying that, and I agree with you, and I have been involved with them, and I have spoken to them, and I have spoken to them with regards to a home that is a historic site. It's got the plaque on the home, it's a historic site, and I've called and spoken to them because this historic site, this home, it's in rambles. It's overgrown with weeds. It looks like it's been an abandoned home, and they can't do anything about it, as I was told.
Do you participate in their meetings? Do you attend the meetings?
I don't attend all the meetings, no.
Okay, but you are aware of the organization. They have a lot on their plate, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. But thank you for that.
Right.
Thank you for participating.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure I clarified something for the public, because there was a question about zoning, and while that's not on this item, there is a big zoning, there is a zoning update in item 8.5, and I do think there are some changes that will impact this area, just not related to the MRA.
Go ahead, Chris.
Mayor Pro Tem, Chris Favor again. Yes, let me clarify comments from before. So there is a proposed zoning change for that area as part of the update to Realize, not specific to the MRA plan. And so what we're proposing for Realize is bringing that area into alignment with the other parcels, which were all NH3 versus NH2. This allows for higher density with housing, which falls in line with what we're trying to do along that roadway. So just to clarify from before. Thank you.
Okay, so we need to vote on 8.1 first? Okay.
So this is on the motion to approve Resolution 26-072. Councilor McClure?
Yes.
Councilor Matisse?
Yes.
Councilor Graham?
Yes.
Councilor Coran?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. for 8.2. Now we need a motion and a second to vote on 8.2.
So moved by Flores.
Second by Corn.
This is on the motion to approve Resolution 26-073. Counselor McClure?
Yes.
Counselor Matisse?
Yes.
Counselor Graham?
Yes.
Counselor Cran?
Yes.
Counselor Flores?
Yes.
Counselor Bencomo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Next is item 8.3, resolution number 26-074, resolution to declare extreme drought conditions within the Las Cruces municipal limits to restrict the use of fireworks for 30 days from adoption.
Bring it forward.
Second.
Oh, move to approve. Golly.
Fire Marshal Landavazo.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. I'm Division Chief Michael Landavazo. I'm the Fire Marshal for Las Cruces Fire Department. I'm here today to talk to you about the current drought in our city and some restrictions for fireworks. The New Mexico State statute provides authority to municipalities to declare a drought and enact firework restrictions. The City of Las Cruces adopted ordinance provides required proclamation language for declaring severe or extreme drought and outlining the restrictions imposed. So this proclamation would be effective for 30 days, and it may be modified or rescinded if conditions improve from now on until the new year. Sorry, I didn't specify that. The reason this is coming up is because of the new year. Permissible fireworks in the city of Las Cruces, this is what our city ordinance allows right now, and this would not change, so no aerials, even if this resolution is voted no, this is the current list of what is available, and this resolution would not change that. These are the current drought conditions here in New Mexico. The U.S. Drought Monitor reports weekly drought conditions, and as you can see, the city of Las Cruces is in severe drought, and so is most of Doñana County. The state ordinance requires that I contact the state forester. I contacted Mr. James Anzalone, and he confirmed that, yes, the city of Las Cruces is in a severe drought right now, and the state is not imposing any restrictions themselves, but he did acknowledge that we are in a severe drought. The proposed restrictions that we're asking for, we're limiting permissible fireworks to areas within the municipal boundaries that are paved, barren, or areas that have a readily accessible source of water. The proclamation shall be issued no less than 20 days. That's what we're ahead of that timeline. And they would go into effect on December 7th for 30 days. State law prohibits local municipalities from prohibiting all fireworks. Our current proposed restrictions would be the most restrictive that the state would allow under these drought conditions. And I will stand for questions, and those are the council options.
Thanks. Any questions? Councilor Cran.
Thank you. When I got on council, this was the most controversial topic in my first year, so I welcome the relative banality of it now. But thank you so much for bringing this back. I just want to sort of add to this data. The way that this is oriented is really about lighting fire to our natural resources, I think is the context for why we're allowed to issue these restrictions. But I will once again, as ever, remind folks that our municipal shelter receives about 30 animals per day around the fireworks time at the worst at 4th of July, but also at the New Year. That can go up to 50 or 60 dogs that end up without homes that go into our shelter, which is not a great situation. So I know that this is the maximum that you all can do and that it's oriented toward not burning stuff down, which is also bad, but I urge folks to consider, really strongly consider whether fireworks do you want to be responsible for your neighbor's dog getting sent to the shelter? And if not, I urge you to please refrain from using fireworks in our fair city. And there are a myriad of other reasons why you should. Not burning stuff down, not making hundreds of angry neighbors, which, trust me, we all hear from the angry neighbors all the time, but really those dogs, I've been to the shelter many times and I don't want to see more there. So I just issue this brief public service announcement to please don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution. Thank you for bringing a little bit of the solution our way.
Thank you, Councilor Karam.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you so much for bringing this forward. I hope we get in the pattern of doing this as well, obviously in the summertime. And who knew they were so controversial, right? I don't want to say anything because I'll end up on a billboard. Joanna hates fireworks, but I do, for many of the reasons stated here already. I am curious. I know right now a lot of the pop-up places that sell fireworks are selling Christmas trees. But so if this should to pass today, is that the kind of outreach that you'll be doing, Fire Marshal? What kind of engagement and outreach do you do for people who are selling fireworks?
So I believe right now we only have one request for anybody to sell fireworks. We may get more as the holiday gets closer, but I believe we only have one right now. We generally see less vendors during New Year's than we do 4th of July, but yes, if they do set up a tent, we will be involved in inspecting to make sure that they're safe and that they have the type of fireworks that are legal in our city.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And obviously you could go somewhere else. You could go to El Paso, but we just really want you to respect. Oh, never mind. You can't do that. Just kidding. We really do just ask you to, respect the environment and the danger it can put our first responders in and your fellow neighbors and their pets as well. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor.
I was just going to ask, what additional educational pieces are you going to put out about how severe the drought is? I mean, will there be maybe a billboard? I mean, we don't have to put Mayor Pro Tem on it, but maybe something about the drought and some messages out there, maybe in our utility bills. I think if people understand how dry it is, maybe they'll be more cautious.
Councilor Matisse, yeah, we've done stuff like that in the past during 4th of July. We've put that in the utility bills like you mentioned, and we've done billboards. For the New Year's, because we don't have as much activity, I think it would be a good idea to do some education on our social media page. We can work with the communications department and get some stuff out about firework safety. And also, one of my members, Lieutenant Mark Aranda, recently did a YouTube video with Bridging the Badge with the LCPD, and they talked about holiday safety and stuff like that. So if you can find that video and maybe share it. It was shared on our page last week, but there's a lot of good stuff on there about holiday safety and fireworks and stuff.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The amount of use of fireworks in December 31st versus July 4th is no comparison, But I would trade the fireworks for the firearms anytime, so you can let them light the fireworks if they need to. We need to get some public announcements out about firearms and not shooting them in the air or shooting them at other people during New Year's Eve. And the other question I had was the county. Is the county doing the same thing?
Mayor Enriquez, I'm not sure. I can reach out to Fire Marshal Cody Haber and ask, but I'm not quite sure what they're doing.
Yeah, because it generally works a lot better when we're complimenting each other, because then it becomes
right. At the 4th of July, we also, Mesilla did not sell aerials for the first time in years, but I don't know if that helped with the decrease in illegal fireworks, but it was nice that at least us, the county, and Mesilla were not selling the aerials.
Yeah, like I said, it helps when the neighbors are doing all the same thing. So if you could look into that just to support what the city is doing, and again, thank you for doing it.
I will do that. Thank you, Mayor Enriquez.
Terry?
This is on a motion to approve Resolution 26-074, Counselor McClure?
Yes.
Counselor Matisse?
Yes.
Counselor Graham?
Yes.
Counselor Curran?
Yes.
Counselor Flores?
Yes.
Counselor Bencomo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is item 8.4, a resolution approving the recommended priorities for the 2026 New Mexico legislative session.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mayor, City Council, Christine Rivera, I'm your city clerk, and today we have the resolution to approve the recommended priorities for the 2026 state legislative session. So a little background on how we got here. First, we met with staff and determined what their priorities were, how they aligned with our CIP. From there, we narrowed it down to the priorities that we presented to you guys at the work session. We also met with the legislators to see if these priorities also aligned with their priorities, and the legislators all had things to pick from our list, so we were very happy. We feel like we're very aligned with what they want this year. We then brought this off to you at the work session on November 10th, and in this work session, we reminded everybody that this is a 30-day session, so these are going to be limited to revenue matters, so not so much policy items are at this 30-day session. And then we discussed advocacy. After we approve this resolution, we'll hand it over to Larry Horan, who will help us advocate in January and February, and then some of us will be going up there also to help advocate for these projects. So the projects we presented to you at the work session were affordable housing for $6 million, the legacy parks, specifically Young Park, for $6 million, East Mesa Public Rec Complex for $1 million, Klein Park improvements for $500,000, fire station improvements for $500,000, the regional driving track for $1.5 million, the real-time crime center bandwidth upgrades for $3 million, the Brannigan Library renovation and expansion for $10 million, the East Side purchase and renovations for $775,000, the wastewater septic systems for $1 million, Mesa Grande Drive extension for $15 million. If you remember, this is the match that we need for the $60 million grant that we received. We did add the WIA building for $700,000 after discussion at the work session. And then the last two are for our nonprofits, the kitchens at the Mesilla Valley Community of Hope for $4 million, and the master plan implementation for $2 million. At the work session, we also presented some policy items. All these policy items are related to funding and budget. The first four policy items were items that were brought forward by the New Mexico Municipal League that we'll be supporting, and then the last two were brought forward at the work session related to animal care. So the creation of the land bank is for funding for vacant and blighted properties and communities. The water and wastewater funding is for an appropriation to the Water Project Fund. The streamlining of the Water Project Fund projects is directly approving eligible projects and speeding up the funding for those. Law enforcement recruitment and retention. This is an evaluation of the barriers to recruitment and retention that's working with the police chiefs division of the New Mexico Municipal League. The affordable spay and neuter law. This funding is actually in place right now, but it ends in June 2026. And so this would be for a funding extension past that time. And then the last one is the care funding, and this is funding to help domestic violence shelters, co-shelter families, and pets. And these are your standard council options. I have the departments here to discuss any of the projects if you have questions, and also Cynthia and Larry are here.
Thank you, Christine. Any questions by council? Seeing none? Don't see anybody. Oh, go ahead, Terry.
This is on a motion to approve Resolution 26-075. Counselor McClure?
Yes.
Counselor Matisse?
Yes.
Counselor Graham?
Yes.
Counselor Curran?
Yes.
Counselor Flores?
Yes.
Counselor Bencomo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Next is item 8.5, Council Bill number 26-010, ordinance number 3102, an ordinance amending chapters 34 through 38 of the Las Cruces Municipal Code with corresponding zoning map as presented.
Move to approve, Graham.
Second.
When you're ready, sir.
Good afternoon, Sarah Gonzalez with Community Development. Before you are the minor amendments for chapters 34 through 38 of the Las Cruces Municipal Code, which is also known as Realize Las Cruces, along with the zoning map as presented. Just a reminder of currently what the chapters went to in February when we adopted the new code. We do have general provisions, historic preservation, our zoning regulations, subdivision regulations, development standards, and then we are updating our zoning map today. So some of the minor ones that are going to be more impactful to the community are the ones that we're presenting today. There are other areas in which the code was modified, but it was to either clarify if it was shall or how. It was if we had to say who was going to be responsible. They were minor adjustments of mins and max, and so they're not going to impact the development, but we clarified a lot of the information throughout the code once we started to implement them. These are going to be the primary ones that are going to stand out and actually impact the development as it moves forward. So under general provisions, this is where you see roles and responsibilities. We did revise for vacation plats. As you can see today, there was one on the agenda where it does just go to City Council. Prior, we have only ever had it go to City Council after DRC. We noticed that we added in the Planning and Zoning Commission. That's an additional step that was unnecessary within that process. So we reverted back to our original standards of City Council being final authority. With DRC, we did add in road waivers and improvements because we are now utilizing the DRC to provide modifications to road improvements. And so you may come in with an alternative cross-section. That means if we're utilizing that step, it can be appealed to City Council, but they are the final authority, so that way we can continue developments moving forward following what we have as far as our complete streets and our cross-sections we adopted. We also expanded some of our definitions as they were not all put into the code. So we do have erosion control. There were several measures that are followed by the EPA standards. So we added them in, verified what their definitions are, so that when we're using them in the field during our windy seasons, it makes sense as to what you're referring to. We've also done fencing and rock wall structures. There is a limitation as far as what is retaining rock walls, what are yard walls, and so we clarified that information and further defined them. Last was our sober living homes. There was no definition as far as how many persons within a home could be there, so we've updated the definitions as well as the land use table to reflect that it'd be 10 persons per home. That's currently what is allowed, and that's what we have to meet our fire and building code standards. When we look at the historic preservation chapter, we only had one minor modification. When we tend to see design review coming in, we are looking at buildings that either may need window replacement, it could be roof repairs, it could be an addition, or it could be something new. With us having the Historic Preservation Committee on board, essentially they review these plans. What takes place right now is you have to do a 15-day notice. So say someone comes in right now in our winter months and has to change out windows. Depending on when they submit, you have to get onto the next agenda for the next meeting and then wait your 15 days. This could take up to 2 months for someone just to replace a window, where they may need to actually do that for safety or cold within their home. And so we're modifying it to essentially reflect the 72-hour notice that we do for City Council as well, just because this is a design review where we're just saying it meets our standards, now come in and get your building permits. We don't want them to wait in that process. This will help streamline it for HPC, but this does not change anything as far as our demolitions. Those are still required to have their noticing days, and they do not change also whenever we're listing new cultural properties. So those have not been changed. This is only for the review of an existing or new proposed buildings coming into the historic district. On chapter 36, we made a few modifications as far as we did have a regulation that said height would have to be at 16 feet if you were doing the first floor or multi-story. We started to notice as accessory dwelling units were coming into the backyards, their homes are at 9 feet, so a 16-foot story does not match the area or is very consistent. And so now we've made it to where it conforms to your area. So you're trying to do it to where it is feasible for that residence or that homeowner to actually build these accessory dwelling units whenever they do have a 2-story. Because sometimes you have a backyard that may be smaller, so you have to go up. We don't want to regulate what those stories may be. So we're looking at anything from when it's 3 stories or higher, then we want to put in those limitations as to different floors of what they should look like. That's how you create essentially your design elements. We also added secondary front yards. We did not have these prior, and so we noticed when we were getting questions or development on corner lots, this is where you see a secondary front. All of them are listed as our residential districts, NH1, 2, and 3, and then you have our rural, suburban, and urban areas. As you can see, it's reduced in our urban areas just because our lots are a lot smaller, and so we have to accommodate knowing that that side yard setback is probably going to be very similar to your side yard setback. We've also added the garage setbacks to the front of an NH3 because we did not have them prior. Because we have so many areas that are zoned in that residential in nature, you still may get a single-family home that comes in. And so you'll see in the rural areas, we've maintained the 20 feet as well as suburban, just because you have larger lots. We have reduced it down to 15 in urban areas, knowing that you can still bring your home forward and the garages are pushed back. It's continued onto our land use table. Some of the modifications we made are temporary construction yards. When we're looking at temporary construction yards, we've allowed them in all of our districts except for OS1 and OS2. That's going to be considered your park and your drainage infrastructure areas. The reason we allow them in any district is you're not sure where you're going to need a temporary construction yard when you are building. That includes the city of Las Cruces whenever we build. And so you're going to have different zoning designations that are there, but we still have regulations and rules that we follow as far as what time we can start work, when you can actually break up pieces onto a property. But you're usually going to somewhere where it's going to be convenient for you. You're not going to create a construction yard on Valley if you're building in Sonoma Ranch. That doesn't actually make it feasible for a construction yard to work. Sober living facilities, as explained earlier, we did add in the home group allowances that allow for 10 persons per, basically a residence. Sober living homes are where it's a volunteer based, and so you're going in and you're getting help assisted from others who are basically in the same concerns or issues that you may have. When you have indoor and outdoor entertainment venues, we've now allowed them in LI and HI, which is our light industrial and heavy industrial. What we see this to be is this could be your amphitheaters, this could be your go-kart tracks. They're areas that are larger parcels in industrial zone where you can have higher noise elements that are not going to affect single-family residential. We currently only have them allowed right now in our CRs, which is our commercial retail, which is very limited in what we changed in our code. The other portion is professional offices. We've already had them limited in our NH1. They were listed, but we didn't put the restriction like we did on all of our other professional offices. So we went back and made the modification to reflect that this would be under 3,000 square feet. So that way it maintains the similarity of those residential homes. We continue on as we've had additional questions for animal raising. So animal raising used to be allowed in our REM, which is our residential estate mobile zoning designations. They were generally half an acre or larger in size because you needed the space in order to do animal raising. We've added that condition in just to ensure that it would not be taking place and following the standards underneath Chapter 7, which is our animal control and basically guidelines as to what you can do on your property. If it gets too small, it's very hard to say that you can bring in 60 chickens and 50 dogs and a cow and a horse and put it in your backyard when you're looking at your standard NH1 zoning designation. And so having half an acre just allows us to have a little bit more space to give you separation for the animal raising. We've also done home occupation. We did not have a vehicle limitation, and so we've gone back to what we had before, which is you are limited to one vehicle for your business, as this is a home occupation. They should primarily be ran out of appointment-based, but sometimes you will have your vehicle that you use for work, and so we don't want to exceed 1 ton. That's essentially what that vehicle would be to run your business or your operation. You generally will still see these in your front yards and your driveways, but we also know that some of these vehicles cannot be parked along the street, so that's why it has to be maintained on your private property. We've simplified the requirements for carports and accessory structures. We have had an increase, which is great for staff because we are now getting compliance and finding that structures are coming in and being bolted and anchored down and not blowing away in the wind. With that, we've also learned that we do need to we've come up with an agreement essentially because we always have the question of how does the next property owner know what's allowed and what's been okay by right? By creating this agreement, we can now basically do that as part of our title search. It gets filed at the county, so the next person who comes in knows they purchased a home with a carport that's attached that cannot be enclosed. They understand what those requirements are. It's the only way to say when you sell a property that there's some kind of trigger to where they're at least notified, and that way it eliminates those ideas of we didn't know we couldn't do certain things. So we're trying to find ways to make sure the public is informed in the same process. We've also changed the non-conforming section. It did not have change in land use. What we tend to see is some properties may increase as far as intensity. Increasing intensity could be a drive-through, right? You're going from a tax office to a drive-through. You've increased your intensity by the number of vehicles that have actually entered onto your property.
And so that's where we want to see compliance come into the sites. We want to make sure that it's going to be safe. If there's any traffic mitigations, we implement those. Halfway there. Going to chapter 37, we're now into subdivisions. So minor plating process, we have modified to allow these to go through administrative process if the improvement's already existing. This would be saying any of our subdivisions that are located in a previously filed subdivision where the utility infrastructures are existing, road improvements are existing, and the sidewalks would be coming in with the development, you would go through an administrative plated process instead of coming through the Planning and Zoning Commission. Over the course of the last year, we've had several non-administrative replats coming in, and it's really that formality of just going through that process. However, the infrastructure was already there. They weren't doing any new improvements. They weren't asking for any waivers. They met the code standards, and so now this will allow them just to continue and move on to build. If the improvements are required, then they have to go through our master plating process. They would not be allowed to go administrative. That means they've got to put in some type of infrastructure to meet the city's requirement. From master plans, we did find a difference within the code that modified development from if you had 2 phases or 40 acres or less. And so we've changed that to say, or essentially we've modified master plans to reflect this because we had it prior as 20 acres. A 20-acre development can be done in 1 phase, but it doesn't require a master plating process. And so to eliminate the 2 steps, they're still coming through with a preliminary plat, which still goes through the Planning and Zoning Commission process. It's just following the rest of our zoning ordinance that says you have to have 40 acres if you're going to zone it a certain zone or a master plan. So it basically is alignment with our zoning map amendment process. We've modified our TIA standards to reflect that trip generations with a possibility of a TIA. And so right now there's three tiers for a TIA. Basically, if you have 0 to 50 trips, then you essentially would have certain measures you do. Once you get to tier 2, then it's 50 to 100. After that, it's anything more than 100. And each one aligns as to what implementations you'd have to put in for traffic calming, or for basically to mitigate whether that's a decel lane, that's a traffic light, a hawk system, just determining. What we've noticed, though, is we want to see these coming in with these developments before the final plating process is completed. A lot of times we're still working with the applicant to see what traffic measures come in. We want to see that this is coming in before we actually approve these construction plans so we know exactly what kind of implementation is going to be taking place for that neighborhood. We've also updated the flood zone documentation requirements, which is our letter of map revision and our conditional letter of map revision. As we know, we do have several properties located within the flood zone. So to ensure development is coming in, we want those submitted to FEMA prior to us getting the subdivisions. We want to see that they've already taken the first step in the process to taking these properties out of the flood zone or finding out what flood mitigations need to take place, as opposed to in the end when we're trying to figure out where we go from here. And so we're doing these steps in the very beginning. When we look at the outdoor lighting ordinance, we started to see that a lot of the information was repetitive, and so we simplified it and still kept the same context, but made it easier for someone to actually read and implement on their properties. We did leave the exemptions in for historic structures and recreational facilities, as you do need different types of lighting for recreational facilities because of their size. Historic structures, of course, they come with historic lights. We can't go in there and just expect them to change because it can change the integrity of their home. We also added development ID signage that was not within our code. This means if you're driving into a subdivision and they're putting on the name of it. Right now we have, Royal Crossing is coming in on the corner of 3 Crosses and Solano. We have Metro Verde that has different development ID signs because it's based on the subdivision name. So we wanted to make sure we had regulations for when these signages were coming in to let people know what area they were actually driving through. On roadways, we clarified some of the language just so that way when we would receive any of our cross-section, we would have no questions moving forward. So the curb is included in the parkways, multi-use paths, sidewalks, and medians. The question was, where is the curb located? Is it part of that 16 feet? Is it not? And so we did clarifying language. Cross-sections are illustrative. If you look at our cross-sections within the code, you can see that the light is closer to the actual road as opposed to the landscaped area. Those are modified. That's why they're images of saying, these are the elements we want to put into the cross-section. However, they can be modified based on the area and the change going through DRC. Traffic instruments, essentially what we consider lights, fire hydrants, stop signs. We have a 12-foot utility easement that runs along all new properties that are developed, and that's essentially where they are going so that way we can actually meet the standards which is later mentioned for our 5 and 6 foot wide sidewalks as we're trying to meet PROAG. ADA does require us to have a 5 foot clear path. In order to do that, we do have to put the streetlights within those easements because otherwise they take up almost 2 feet of that cross section, which means we've defeated the purpose of having our sidewalks at 6 feet if we've eliminated the path. Last, we do have our stacking lanes for basically any drive-throughs. We are requesting that they either meet 85 to 100 feet in length, and that's from the time that you pick up at a service window. Right now, we currently have it at 100 feet. It does work. It shows that you can basically have 5 cars in your stacking lane, and then some are doing the double circulation, and so that's impactful. Moving on to parkland dedication and improvements. We did bring these forward in October as a discussion and November. However, they were not put into code, so we are correcting our mistake of not including it, as we know these will come in handy. Specialty parks less than 3 contiguous acres, and so if a developer comes in, they can request any of these alternatives that they may not be able to have if they can develop something different. So if you can develop a specialty park that is less than 3 acres, but it wows the community, that can be accepted by the Parks Department. If you can do parkland that's adjacent to other land that we can actually combine, then that means we can also go ahead and develop that into 3 acres. Not every property will be able to dedicate 3 acres, but if we have an acre and a half somewhere else and an acre and a half next to each other, we can now combine and make a 3-acre park. There's also the provision of if you build a larger park than the minimum 3-acre or your minimum standard, then the city can come back and reimburse for those parks. And so it's if you're going to do more, then we have the ability to reimburse. Lastly, as discussed earlier, we do have our draft zoning map. As we continue to work with property owners, we did get 30 different property owners we discussed, and we went through and verified that their properties were updated. We needed to update them because they were in different spaces, they had current zoning, we gave them either a lower class or something that wasn't compatible to the neighborhood, and so we modified those zonings to reflect what was going to actually be in alignment with the neighborhood. Each year, we will probably bring this back at least for 1 more year, just because we're going to see as people start to develop these properties, they're going to ask those questions, oh, wait, this isn't here. The part we haven't gathered is we went through the transitional months, which is our 8 months that we've had. Those 8 months, we had either developers already doing the 2001 zoning code, they weren't going to modify, or we've had new development come in and use the new code. But until January, when we actually go with full-on realized Las Cruces, we will start to see those implications and the changes. That's where we'll start to really identify where things were either right or wrong and come back with more amendments. We expect to do this every year, so that way we don't get behind on the circle. We want to make sure that we're actually changing the community the way we should be. We did take this to the Planning and Zoning Commission on October 28th. They did vote to approve with 2 recommendations, and this was to adjust the garage setback to 15 feet in the urban area and to allow botanical gardens in our open space and recreational. Those 2 modifications are presented, and we did update the code based on those recommendations. They weren't something we didn't see was going to be impactful. We can see in the urban core that you want to see the house coming first. You don't want to see the first thing as the garage. And so we made those modifications. With that, these are council's options, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions? Councilor Flores.
Thank you. And thank you, Sarah, Ms. Gonzalez. You went through that like a real champ. You stayed up all night rehearsing, right? All weekend. Anyway, great. Thank you so much for the presentation. I have a question regarding flooding. I think page 9. This has always flooding has always bothered me because my district has, there are a lot of homes right next to the flood zone. You've heard this before 1,000,000 times. So does this, I mean, you can't control Mother Nature you can't control I'm talking with my hands anyway. You can't control Mother Nature, and you can't control, you just can't. But my concern is that why would anybody allow a contractor to build a home adjacent to an arroyo? And everybody, everybody in town, when the subject comes up, everybody says, Oh, you're talking about the 100-year flood. Well, when does that 100 years start ticking? I mean, the city of Las Cruces has been here more than 100 years. Have we ever had a flood situation in a neighborhood? And the only places I've seen where that potential or that danger could occur is in District 6. So I'm just wondering, the updated flood zone documentation requirements, letter of map revision, because there were, I think I've shared this with you before, and maybe with some of my colleagues, but when I was running for city council, I sat in on a meeting that the previous, the incumbent had, a community meeting at DACC. And David Dollahan was then there. And I think you might have been there too, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yes. And there was a Mrs. White, I believe, sitting next to Seal Levatino up in the front row. And she her property was right next to, I know you've heard this before, Chris. Do you want to tell the story? No? So anyway, there was a flood, and their house was, I mean, because I went and looked at it and all that, you know, how it was located, and they were way, I mean, you'd think, how could water rise that high? Well, it did. It flooded their house. And because of that, Mr. White, the fear, the whatever, died of a heart attack. He had a heart attack and he died. So my question is, when these, when you look at this threat, do you stay away from arroyos now, or how does that work with developers and whatever, home builders?
Mayor and Councilor Flores, a lot of the process, and that's where we're seeing the same concerns. I think a lot of our process has moved towards when we're seeing master plans that are coming in that either have arroyos or flood control that are affected, we're asking the applicant to already start working with FEMA. One, that's going to help us raise the elevations of where these properties are. It's going to tell us where we would have to adjust, or maybe the development when it comes in, as far as if the arroyo's moving. So the hardest part is, when we first did realize Las Cruces, some of the comments were, let's add in 100 feet from the center line. Well, but the arroyo moves, you can't measure that anymore, and so you can't put a number on those things. And so each development as it comes in has to find a way to say, this is how far we need to be from this development at this point in time when we're actually developing. And that's why we use those resources through FEMA, to use their maps to say, okay, if we elevate this property this high, add 2 feet, it's going to change what the development may be. Through the process, we ask them to do this prior to submitting to us, so that we already know that they're going to be making those changes, so it doesn't impact the developments that are coming in. This was something we were doing at the end. We're now requesting it first because we see the same concerns you have.
Well, thank you.
Mayor, Councilor Flores, Chris Favor for the record. If I could just make one more comment too. So a lot of those concerns have been realized by developers over the years, and what we're starting to see, and I noticed this specifically with one of the rezones we did for one of Moscato's properties a few months ago, they're developing and not impacting the arroyos. They're leaving them to their sort of natural flow, so they're not trying to move that water to fit the development. So we are seeing more of a trend to just kind of leave them and develop in areas where they're not going to impact the flow of that arroyo. So it is an issue that both the city and the developers are aware of, and we kind of work together to make sure that we're mitigating that as we move forward.
But we have arroyos, well, I'm speaking of District 6 because that's the one I'm always there, of course. But we had an issue when Mr. Cedillo was still the Public Works Director. Again, my district, where there was an issue with the arroyo being too close to the house. And what Mr. Cedillo did was he took out his magic wand and took care of everything. Do you remember that, Mr. Cedillo, with Mr. Lynch, David Lynch, the water thing? But anyway, you know, they were very concerned, and somehow it was taken care of. But when that happened, that wasn't too long ago. That was just a few months ago. The other incident happened like about 9 years ago, at least 9 years ago, maybe 10. And I'm really concerned about that because heaven forbid, you know, and then there's also south, it's not my district anymore, it's District 3. But south of Loman, I have a friend who lives on one of those streets, and there's an arroyo not very far from her house. And when I first visited her, when I first went to her house, I said, aren't you afraid of the arroyo, you know, whatever, flooding your home? And she said, oh no, it's way out there. And I said, we can walk that in about 2 minutes, and the water, you know, would come up even faster than that. But at any rate, I know that you're very conscientious, but I think I want to assure our people, our residents, that they're taken care of. So I want to thank you.
Mayor, Councilor Flores, one last thing I'll add too is that, you know, community development and public works, you know, we work closely together on these things, and one of the things that we are looking at extensively is grant funding for flood mitigation so that we can long-term move some of these areas out of a flood zone to sort of address these problems in advance. So those are things that, you know, we're working with other departments to sort of mitigate.
Wonderful. So when you take the people out of the flood zone, or you take the flood possibility out of it? I'm sorry.
Mayor, Councilor Flores, so it would be flood mitigation to take those parcels, to take that land out of the flood zone, so.
Before building.
Correct. Or if it's already there, to mitigate the flooding and reduce reduce the potential future flooding potential of those parcels.
Would you please invite me to those ceremonies when you cut the ribbon on that step? Seriously, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you so much. Sarah. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor McClure.
Not to throw a wrench in, I know we were going to do this a while with Realize, but there's a lot of error reference source not found in the packet under Chapter 34. They're just links. You just got to put them in there. Just to give you the heads up to make sure that nothing is bad.
Mayor, thank you, Councilor. Appreciate that.
Councilor Majis.
Okay, this is a tough one to admit.
I'll have Sarah come up and talk.
You know where I was on the original vote, and I wasn't trusting that there would be so many right and wrong amendments to the Realize Las Cruces, so I'm really pleased to see, like on page 5, where you actually address height conformity to the existing neighborhood. You know, that was one of my concerns, so and there's many other amendments that have made things better for me to swallow. I just want to appreciate your hard work on that. And listening to, I don't know if it was DRC or homeowners, but you have listened quite well. And I know there'll be more amendments coming. That's even comforting for me to know. So thank you very much for the amendments and the hard work on Realize Las Cruces. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay, Christine.
This is on the motion to approve ordinance 3102. Councilor McClure?
Yes.
Councilor Matisse?
Yes, this time. Yes.
Councilor Graham?
Yes.
Councilor Coran?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay, next is board appointments. We do have one. I need a motion and a second. This is for Cynthia Enriquez, new appointment to Utility Board.
Move to approve.
Second, Graham.
This is on the motion to appoint Cynthia Enriquez to the Utilities Board. Councilor
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Councilor Matisse?
Yes.
Counselor Graham?
Yes.
Counselor Curran?
Yes.
Counselor Flores?
Yes.
Counselor Bencomo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Next is a notice of proposed ordinances, and we have three. The first one is City Council Bill number 26-011, ordinance number 3103, an ordinance adding Chapter 16, Article 12, short-term rentals to Las Cruces Municipal Code.
Bring it forward.
The second one is Council Bill number 26-012, ordinance number 3104, an ordinance amending Chapter 16, Article 11 of the Las Cruces Municipal Code, limiting the use of plastic single-use carry-out bags in certain retail operations.
Bring it forward.
The third one is Council Bill number 26-013, ordinance number 3105, an ordinance approving a 5-year lease agreement with options to renew for up to 4 additional 5-year terms between the City of Las Cruces and the Mesilla Valley Community of Hope for the operations and management of the city-owned Community of Hope campus located at 999 West Amador Avenue.
Bring it forward.
With that, we'll go to City Council member board reports and comments. Councilor McClure.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to address something that this was already kind of on my list that George Pearson had brought up, that we discuss a little bit more about what Vision Zero looks like for Las Cruces. I think that the will is there, but I think the definitions are a little foggy. I asked about it not too long ago, and there was a sort of a conversation about the safe streets for all, that would wrap in a lot. But I think when we think about funding sources versus setting the goal and being bold about that goal, we should do that. So maybe we need to have a little bit more discussion on what road safety looks like for different users. And I had also been given the request, let's do some of these road audits, because the Metropolitan Planning Organization has that data. And we've been sitting through lots of presentations where they say, at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday is the worst day for Telshore and Lowman. What do we do with that data specifically? And they say, go back to your organizations and do a project. Awesome, what does that mean? So here is where we need to talk a little bit more about what that means concretely for us. And I'd like to do that, much like George said. So I know there's a desire for us to be bold about not losing more people on our streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Matisse.
Thank you, Mayor. My comment is on a more serious note. I'd like some answers. I received an email about an overstatement of the budget. I'd like to know the amount. I'd like to know when it occurred. And I'd like to know if maybe the city manager can explain it today, if the auditors have been notified, and just more detail on it. I've asked for detail and I haven't received it. And as a public service, I feel it's my duty to get it out there and be transparent. So I appreciate that, City Manager, Mayor.
Graham is gone. Councilor Corinne.
Thank you. I just want to give a quick shout out of appreciation to Councilor Graham, who already left, for her leadership in the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley Executive Director search. We did include community input, staff input, and a lot of things, and we did come up with a really great candidate. She is a person from who has a rescue background, who has been an ACO, who has also worked in sort of crisis animal rescue and with municipal shelters in that capacity. So the candidate is really outstanding. I really appreciate everyone who participated in the process, including the folks who led that process and the staff for their input, and the staff who have been carrying the weight in the absence of having an executive director. So more to come on that soon. I hope we can give her a warm welcome when she arrives. to Las Cruces, but I just wanted to express my gratitude to everyone who participated in that really great process that had a bunch of great candidates who came forward. So otherwise, that's it.
Thank you. Councilor Flores.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to just say that it's been wonderful being on City Council these past 8 years. I have one more meeting and then I'm out of here. In fact, I already have my running shoes on. Seriously, no, not. But it's really interesting how everything has evolved. I remember back in 2016 or 2017, before I was on City Council, the community schools issue was being discussed. Being with the League of Women Voters and being an educator, I became involved with that, and now the community schools are thriving. They continue to grow, and I thank Carol Bray for being at those meetings because the museums have been an integral part of children's education. So thank you, Carol, and your staff for that and for being at our meetings. I think that of all the boards that I've served on, that one probably has been the most, not necessarily fruitful, but the results have all been positive. And in terms of the attendance, in terms of the teachers that are so involved, the principals who are so involved, and there are principals who actually, several I know of, who will, if a child hasn't showed up after a day or two, maybe 2 days, they'll go to the home to make sure, to find out why that child wasn't at school. So attendance has gone up, and I think we all know from being in school that missing out, not being in class, is a horrible feeling. Like if you come down with the measles and you just can't go, and then you get back there and you're like in La La Land, like you missed a lot in those days that you were away from school. So the community schools has been wonderful, and we're very fortunate that we have the superintendent. I think he finally attended one meeting after I told him, hey, haven't seen you at our community schools board meetings. And Councilor Graham has served on that this past year or so. At any rate, I think that of the many wonderful things the city does for our community, in my book, the best thing has been the community schools, and some of you all of you are welcome to attend our meetings. They vary because of calendars and all that, but so anyway, I just wanted to share that bit of information with you. And it's been wonderful serving with, well, for a while there it was all women. Oh, anyway, it's okay to have 2 men on the city council. It kind of balances out the power. But it's been a pleasure serving the city. It's been a pleasure having the colleagues I have on this board. And arrivederci. Ciao.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks, Mayor. Recognizing that next week's meeting, just kidding, December 15th. Never mind, I was going to say it's their last meeting and she's gone, but that's not true. December 15th will be her last meeting. You're right. Okay, great. Then I'll save my comments for then. Mayor, the only thing I wanted to add on my list is, well, actually, one, to ditto Councilor McClure on pedestrian safety. I do think we need to revisit that conversation more seriously around Vision Zero. And then secondly, I wanted to ask for a presentation from municipal court. I know that there's been issues just regarding their location. Beyond that, I'm, curious about, we had implemented that case manager there for the SOS program. I'd love an update on how that's going, if it's working, if they need support, like what's going on at municipal court and some of the interventions we had there, and would really love to hear from Judge Filosa. Thanks, Mayor.
No, that's great. We've often talked about a presentation when you gathered enough data. I think now it's going to be a year since it was implemented, but by the time all the hiring and everything took place, so I think he's accumulated enough data and research to provide a presentation. We'll get with Christine on scheduling that for him, maybe in January or something. Sounds good. Just want to mention a couple of things. One of the, as the public comments took place, a couple of individuals talked about homelessness, mental health, and substance abuse, and what are we doing about that, and what's going on. And I'm excited to say that we now have on staff through a grant the public health coordinator, and that survey evaluation on mental health and substance abuse and homelessness is going to be a coalition of stakeholders from the community coming together, and they should have their first meeting coming up December 11th. So that's going to take place. I know fire, police, the hospitals, the schools, housing, a lot of internal departments, and then a lot of external and community members will be part of that, so that we can get to what is the problem in our city, and how can we start strategically coming up with better results to help our community and those individuals involved. So that's coming up. So I wanted to address that. I know they come up and ask what's going on, that's what's going on, and that's what we're going to be doing. Another, just want to give a shout out to NMSU Theater. Saturday night was their opening night for A Christmas Carol. So it's the NMSU students with some community actors putting on the play. I think it's going to run for a couple of weeks there at NMSU Mark Medoff Theater. It's really neat, a good way to kick off the holiday spirit with such a classic tale of giving and hope. And so if you all get a chance to go out and support some of our student actors and some of the local communities, by all means go, and it's a great show. And with that, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Enriquez, Mayor Pro Tem Bencomo, and City Council, County Tamopiao, City Manager. And I appreciate, Councilor Matisse, appreciate your comments. For those who don't know, Councilor Matisse is bringing up a comment about an overstatement in a budget which was discovered by our finance director. And I appreciate our finance director as she's come in and become comfortable in her position. She's been able to, with her budget team, look into our coffers and see that there is misalignment in numbers. And so Councilor Matisse is referring to an overstatement that affected our budget reserves. Essentially, the most important thing, Councilor Matisse and to Council and Mayor, as I've shared before to you, and you received correspondence a few weeks ago, and to staff, that the budget will be balanced by the end of this fiscal year. Over years, for the past few years, our expenditures have been increasing and our revenues haven't been climbing at the rate of our expenditures. So we've had to grab and go deeper into our budget reserves. Essentially, what we're doing with the overstatement that we requested, and unfortunately, Councilor Matisse, as we may have shared with you in council, that the official numbers I'm not able to make public at this time because we just barely sent that to our state auditor today, and that typically comes in front of you in council in February, and that happens annually after the state auditor has finalize those numbers. After he gives us approval, then we can publicly share those numbers. And so, but we can share some draft numbers with you offline, as mentioned. But I just wanted to share with you, there is no deficit in this budget. We have the reserves, and we have an approach that our finance department is working thoroughly on that will get us to balance this budget. We have, and just to take a few feet and back off and give us the eagle's eye view for the public, we have about $180 million general fund. In addition to that, we have about $30 in transfers that go out to our airport as an enterprise, that pays our debt service, that pays in transfers in our road fund about $5 million at times. We have JU transfer, joint utilities in there, and then we also have other funding sources. All that accumulates to about $30 million. And so we have a math problem at the end of the day that, again, as I shared, we have an awesome finance team that is working to figure this out. The great thing about this, that the city has been very methodical, and they've been very prudent, and so we have a fund balance that has been helping us through these past years. And so we will be able to get through this year. And of course, we're making, we have an approach that we shared with you and staff that we're looking into personnel. And really what we're doing is we're not hiring more personnel at this time. We're freezing. We're looking in other approaches as well to get control of this, to really understand what we're doing with this budget, so that as we go into this budget year, together with departments, we can work with you and council to ensure that we have a sustainable budget moving forward. But the word of the day that I want to ensure that it's very clear that there isn't a deficit. This was an overstatement, but we've had reserves that have been able to pay for these dips and these ebbs that we find in our budget years. So just want to make sure that's clear with you, Councilor Matisse. And as always, I'm happy to meet offline and we can discuss further, okay? Thank you. Last announcement, we have Visit Las Cruces and its partners were nominated and made the finals in 6 categories at the New Mexico Hospitality Association Annual Top Hats Award, which recognizes excellence in their industry. They won in 2 categories: Best Print Campaign for Visit Las Cruces 2025, Visitor's Guide, and the Friends of Oregon Mountains Desert Peaks for outstanding event. Can we give a round of applause, please, to Rochelle and her fantastic team? Always bring back prizes. We appreciate that. And Mayor, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Connie. I also want to mention that Saturday is the Christmas tree lighting at the plaza. I believe that's at 6 p.m. Is that? No, it's 6 to 8 p.m. At 7 p.m., we'll light it. We'll turn the bulbs on, the lights on. Yes, I believe so. Looking for a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
This is on the motion to adjourn the meeting. Councilor McClure?
Yes.
Councilor Matisse?
Yes.
Councilor Graham is absent. Councilor Cran?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
And Mayor?
Yes.